We've all seen the pictures of the studios that have the giant speakers on the wall and then like four pairs of monitors. And you might have asked yourself, do I need multiple pairs of monitors? Why does that professional recording studio have so many to choose from? Well, if you ever wanted to know the answer to that question, or you were thinking about buying another pair of monitors, maybe you should pause for a second and watch this video. In this video, we're going to talk about if there's any benefit to having multiple pairs of speakers, why some studios might have multiple sets, and are you really missing out by not having them? We'll also talk about the three different categories of studio monitors that you can choose from, such as near field, midfield, and far field monitors, and when you should pick one over the other. This is a great video today, so be sure to stick around to the end of the video. Hey, what's going on, YouTube? It's Bobby Balo, the mixing and mastering engineer at Raytown Productions. This channel is dedicated to helping you make better sounding music without needing to spend a ton of money on expensive gear or unnecessary plugins. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining me today. Be sure to hit that subscribe button because I'm going to drop new videos every single week to help you level up the quality of your music. And since we're talking about studio monitors and gear and all that fun stuff today, I have a special gift for you. In the description, I've just recently updated my recommended gear guide for home studio owners. So if you want recommendations based on science and not marketing that covers everything that you might need for home studio, go and download a copy of that. It's in the description. All right, so let's talk about studio monitors. The terms near field and far field basically mean one thing. Near field is when you are hearing the majority of the sound coming from your speakers. In far field, meaning you're hearing the majority of the sound from your room or the reflections or the reverberation from your room. If you want to learn more about that kind of stuff, be sure to check out my good buddy Yesko Lohan's YouTube channel called Acoustics Insider. He is an excellent resource for anybody that's trying to get into home studio acoustics. But what you need to understand is that the acoustics terminology, near field and far field, is different from speakers, near field and far field. When we're talking about studio monitors being near field, midfield, or far field, that's simply a manufacturer's description for about where you should place the speakers in terms of distance from your listening position. So for most home studios, you're going to choose near field speakers because our home studios aren't that big, right? This is in a spare bedroom. I don't have a ton of space to put studio monitors. So in practice, near field monitors are typically going to be anywhere from about 2 feet to 4 feet away from your listening position. Midfield speakers operate the best when they're about 4 feet to 8 feet away from your listening position. And far field is basically anything farther away than that. So the only way I could put far field speakers in this studio is if I was mixing along the back wall facing forwards, which doesn't make any sense because this is my ideal listening position. Now, here's the thing that you need to understand about having a home studio and these different types of monitors. Now, typically, the closer the speakers are to your listener, or the mixing engineer in this case, the more direct sound you're going to get from the speaker. The sound from the speaker is going to be a much more analytical, flat sound compared to the summation of the speaker plus your room, okay? So for critical listening applications, you're going to want to be close to your speakers because you're going to get the most direct sound from that. And if you have an untreated home studio, you're going to want to get even closer because that's going to make the direct sound louder than the sound in your room, okay? You don't have acoustic treatment to absorb the sound, and that's going to interfere with the direct sound. Now, like I mentioned earlier, if you were to buy midfield monitors, those tend to be a lot larger than near field speakers, so they have bigger drivers. So the bass extension tends to be better than the near field monitors, unless you have a subwoofer with your near fields. However, those midfield monitors tend to sound the best when they're 4 to 8 feet away, which is pretty far away, especially for a home studio. Finally, far field monitors are basically just the biggest speakers you can get into a room to make it really exciting to listen to. Okay, if you want to check your mix and how it's going to sound back in like a club or at a very large venue or a concert or something like that, that's when you get these far field monitors. They're not that great for mixing, but they're great for impressing a client or just having a good time and pissing your neighbors off. So if we break down the goal of each one of those categories of speakers, your near field speakers are going to be useful for critical listening in mixing and mastering applications. Your midfield monitors are going to have better bass extension, but you're probably going to have more room interaction. So it's going to be a little bit less accurate in terms of mixing or mastering. But if you need low end extension, that's probably going to be a good compromise there. Of course, if you have a sub with your near fields, then that works as well. That's probably a better way to approach it. And finally, far fields are basically only there if you want to really hear your music played back at the loudest levels with the deepest bass response. So are you missing out by only having, let's say, near field monitors and not having a pair of mid or far field monitors? In my opinion, you are not missing out on anything. And in fact, you're saving yourself a ton of money and a lot of extra work to go and treat your room to fix all of the room modes that you might be activating by pumping your room with a lot more energy from those mid and far field monitors. So do you need multiple pairs of near field monitors? A lot of times you'll see pictures of studios with 2 or 3 sets of monitors that are all near fields. So why do they have that? The reason for multiple pairs of speakers is basically for a new perspective on a mix. So if you have a way to quickly switch between speakers, and you also, and this is important, critically know how each pair of speakers sounds in your room and what their deficiencies are, it might give you a better overall perspective on the music you're mixing or mastering in your studio. However, it's really hard to know how all those different speakers sound in your room because you'd have to listen to music and reference music through multiple pairs of speakers. And I find that to be a little bit overwhelming. And what I tend to use time and time again is one pair of near fields and then one other, either single speaker or boombox or something that has limited bandwidth to give me perspective in a not hi-fi environment, okay? So a lot of times music's listened back to on cell phones just by playing through their speaker or a laptop speaker or something like that. And so their frequency ranges are really restricted. So having multiple sets of speakers that all go the full range of the audio spectrum to me seems a little bit redundant or pointless. Whereas if you have one set of speakers that's full range and one limited range of speaker or speakers, that's going to give you an idea of how that's going to translate to all the different devices, especially ones that are limited in bass. So in my studio, I have Genelec 8030s as my main monitors with an SVS sub, so I have full range extension there, and I also will frequently switch from my full range system to a single mono speaker to check to see how it's going to sound on these lower fidelity devices. And that one little mono speaker that I use to check my mixes on when I'm not listening to my full range system is a Mix Cube by Avitone. That is an Auratone clone back from like the 70s, I believe. And basically, that's just a 5-inch speaker that is very similar to the drivers in most cars. So you're going to have very limited low-end extension, and you're not going to have a tweeter or anything, so you're going to be missing a lot of the high-frequency range. So it gives you a very clear perspective of what the mid-range sounds like in a limited bandwidth environment. So between that mono speaker, limited frequencies, and my full-range system, I very quickly know if a mix is dialed in right or if there's some weird imbalances in the mid-range by having those two systems. Now, if I had multiple different near fields that were full range, I really don't think it's going to give you that much of a difference in perspective, and I think it's kind of a waste of money personally. So if there's some advice I could give you looking forward as you're thinking about getting maybe a second pair of studio monitors is pause for a second and ask yourself why you really want the second pair of speakers. Is there something that your speakers aren't telling you? If that's the case, maybe you should consider spending the money in studio acoustic treatment or upgrade your main speakers or maybe add a subwoofer or something. If it feels like you don't have adequate perspective on how your mix is going to sound on lower fidelity devices, that's when you should consider investing into a second set of speakers, or in my case, just pick up an Avitone Mix Cube or something. Another option that's not talked about often is to have a good set of headphones to reference. That will remove all of the room interaction and give you a fresh perspective on what your mix sounds like. Those are also a lot cheaper options than investing in another big pair of studio monitors. All right, so with that, I'm curious to hear about what kind of speakers you are using in your studio and if you have multiple sets of studio monitors. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you have multiple pairs of speakers, do you actually use them a lot? Do you switch back and forth between the different monitors? And are they giving you the perspective you need to really make a great sounding mix? Or do you really just use one set? Whatever the situation is, let me know in the comments. I'm so curious to hear your perspective. If you thought this video was helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to help support me or this channel, I'd really appreciate it if you sent this video or another one of my videos to some of your friends, or you could share this with online communities like Facebook or Reddit. It's going to help get the word out, send some good advice to people that are trying to build up their home studios and just get a better sound out of their studio. I look forward to interacting you in the comments section, and I hope to see you in another video.